Good afternoon. Welcome back to our three-part series for mindfulness stress release. My name is Berak Hussain. I'm the International Student Counsellor at the Health and Counseling Services at Carleton University. And this afternoon, we're going to be taking a look at how to manage your stress for exams. It's this time of year where, of course, our stress levels are unfortunately heading high up with the end of term assignments, midterms, and heading into the finals. So today we're going to be taking a look at how to take care of your stress and preparing for exams as we head into this final part of our academic year. And this could be useful for anybody who's studying, not necessarily just in university. So let's get started. And hopefully today we won't get too many technical issues that we've had similarly in the past. So let's get started with our slides. And great, here we go. We are already into it with no tech issues so far. So hopefully we'll just, people could join in and take advantage of the tips and strategies that we're going to take a look at. So we're going to take a look at stress. For those of you who've already done part one, we took a look at what stress is all about, how it impacts you, and how to take care of it. And part two is about burnout. We're going to still do a little bit review on stress and some other concepts around that, and then we'll take a look at the actual strategies in terms of how to manage stress for exams. So when we take a look at stress, essentially what it is, it's the body's physical response to a perceived demand or threat. This is when our body goes into the fight or flight response. And here what happens is that our bodies then shuts down, so to speak, where all of our systems are focused on either getting away or fighting in the response. So our digestive systems, you don't feel really hungry when you're in that high level of the fight or flight when your parasympathetic system is activated. And what happens here is that we see that both stress and anxiety, they can both add challenge and opportunity as a motivator for preparation, right? So each of us have our own individual optimal stress level and different ways of coping with stress. So we talked about in our previous session looking at stress print, and the stress print is essentially just like our own fingerprint. We have our stress print, which indicates to us all of the symptoms and signs of stress that occur to us uniquely. And once you have an idea of that, then you can be proactive rather than reactive. So once you surpass that optimal level, then it can get into where the negative impact can occur. So signs that you've surpassed that optimal level could include insomnia or oversleeping, right? It could be appetite changes. So we could be eating too much or too little. It could be moodiness, withdrawal, depression, could have headaches, right? More more signs that you've surpassed your optimal level of stress. That threshold could be, again, the headaches. It could be more illnesses. So you could have increase of colds, flu, because your immunity is much low, right? Muscle aching, stomach ailments, IBS. So it's really important to look for the physical symptoms and signs, the behavioral, mental, as well as emotional. And once you know you've surpassed your own level of optimal level of the stress print, then you got to be proactive in taking care of that stress. Otherwise, it's just going to lead to that burnout that we don't want to get to. So the next part here, we'll take a look at a variety of different signs and symptoms of stress. And we've gone over these before in terms of looking at how your body shows and exhibits these signs and symptoms that identify your stress print. And we've done that before for those who remember. So it's really important to recognize, and you can take a look at this now, this list here, and take a look at, yeah, this happens to me, or this happens to me when I'm stressed. So it's really important to recognize when that is happening so that you can be proactive and understand how your body responds to stress rather than the breakdown of that stress taking you over. All right. So I'm gonna just pass through that. If you want, go back to the first workshop where we get into a lot of details. So other additional stressors could include financial pressures, right? It could be also the frustration of disappointments around you. Definitely that could be something that could impact you. It could be perception of the lack of time to meet those demands. So students may not have enough time to finish assignments. Sometimes we wish more than 24 hours uh, to be able to complete your assignments and so on and so forth. And then taking a look at new or multiple decisions to make. So sometimes when you're faced with things that you have to decide right away, whether it's your career path, whether you got to move, whether, what courses to take, that can cause a lot of stress for you as well, right? Social pressures, of course, family issues, relationships, of course, exams, academics, holidays. So definitely for holidays, I mean, right now, heading into summer holidays, a little bit different than heading to, let's say, the Christmas winter holidays, right? Each one has its own type of stressors. For example, the summer holidays, you're looking at, okay, am I going to work? Am I going to take courses? Am I going to travel? What am I going to do? Right. So all of that could cause a little bit more stress. So when we take a look at living a stress-free life, that's not really something of a reasonable goal to get to. The goal is to be able to deal with it actively and effectively. And that is a state of mind, right? And this is something that we decide consciously to do, right? We decide to do this or not. So it's really important to be aware that our goals are going to be different from each person, right? But ultimately, we want to be able to live a life where we can handle dealing with stress as opposed to that wish of, well, I don't want to live with stress. That's not something reasonable. So, common stress management techniques, and these are things that I spent a lot of time looking at before, but we'll do a nice summary now, is taking a look at our basic self care and lifestyle strategies, right? So, eating healthy is really important. And again, I spent some time discussing it before with some resources. Good sleep hygiene, mini breaks, exercise, right? Deep breathing exercises can be really very helpful as well. And if you remember in the first workshop, we did a nice mindfulness breathing meditation. Then you've got interpersonal strategies. So having good relationships around you, getting rid of toxic relationships, but also putting boundaries around people who are toxic for you, right? Sometimes you have no choice but to live with toxic people or work for a toxic environment of people. So it becomes really helpful to just be aware of this so that you can manage it in a better way in terms of what are the people around you. Are they some people that you really have to interact with? Can you set boundaries with them, et cetera, et cetera? So things to keep in mind that can be really helpful when you are working, let's say, in a toxic environment, and perhaps it can get so extreme that you need to leave that environment, right? So social supports, friends, families, good high energy people, positive people, learning how to say no and set, and putting those boundaries. Learn and use good communication skills. That can be really helpful. When you have clear communication, it goes a long way in helping you manage the stress around you because you've got that clarity. So then you've got emotional strategies. So nurturing self-care activities, anything from getting a manicure, for taking a nice walk in the rain, even if it's a bit chilly, going into a pet store, all of these things can go a long way. Getting your favorite treats, that's also something that can be nice as well. Why not? Right. So these are all things to keep in mind. Expressing your feelings with people that you can trust, laughing more often. There's so much science around laughter and happiness and how it affects your bodies and hormones that are related to muscles that pull. Let's say, for example, we say fake it till you make it, right? So laughing or smiling, that smile, even if it can be fake, it sends the muscle signals to the brain, which then send the happy hormones, like thinking that you're smiling, right? Relaxation techniques, like we said, deep breathing, visualization, muscle tension relaxation, which I do in the first workshop. Cognitive strategies in terms of challenging negativity and perspective, right? So taking a challenge and reframing it, making it an opportunity rather than thinking that, oh, whoa, me, poor me, why me, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you can look at it and say, what can I learn from this? So learning how to reframe perspectives like that. And of course, spiritual, philosophical strategies, those are people of faith, absolutely prayer, religion, spirituality has a huge connection with mental health and wellness. And actually, this weekend, for those of you who are interested, I'm actually going to be doing a talk outside of university in terms of spirituality, religion, and the impact on mental health. So you can find that on the social media page that will be talking with a scholar and looking at different aspects of that. So that's something that can be really interesting. So it's 3:00 this Sunday. So you can find the information on my social media page. And of course, looking at clarifying your values, what's important for you, your morals. So getting that clarification can really help you move in a positive direction when there's so much confusion in the world these days, right? All right, so let's wrap up this section in terms of understanding what is good overall stress management, right? It has to do with balance. So good regular sleep, so 6 to 8 hours a night. I know during exams that can be near impossible, but it's definitely something that we can tweak during exam time if need, but then make sure you make up for it. So eat regular healthy meals and stay hydrated. I know those students who are practicing, those people who are observing the month of Ramadan Mubarak, first of all, blessings for this holy month, that can be really challenging when it comes to meals and staying hydrated. So you have to find your optimal study period, whether it's in the morning, when it's very clear, your mind is clear, or perhaps later in the afternoon, or perhaps even after you break your fast later into the evening. So you got to find the optimal time, because I know it's this month is falling into the exact same time as students who are finishing up their courses and at the end of the term. So it's really important to learn how to make a good balance with that, right? So looking at balance with life, studies, work, and recreation. That's really important during this time as well. And understanding and accepting your personal strengths and learning how to build upon things that need to be improved. Taking frequent breaks during study breaks can really help. For example, taking a 2-hour walk outside in the weather, sorry, 10 minutes gives you 2 hours worth of study energy. I don't think we have time for a 2-hour walk when we're studying, but a 10-minute walk can give you 2 hours worth of study energy. And learn how to use your support network around you. So, for example, if you need groceries picked up for you when you are studying, or for those who are fasting, instead of cooking meals, go to a place where there's ready meals. I know on campus, they're doing every Wednesday, I believe they're doing iftar, breaking of the fast. There's definitely centers and mosques around that provide that. So instead of, if it takes too long for you to actually cook, then there's that option as well, right? So exercising regularly. So for example, taking those walks 3-4 times a week, some kind of exercise. And for those who cannot hit the gym as they usually can during exam period, try to still incorporate some kind of exercise routine, whether it's a walk or a quick 15-minute home workout, something like that, and learn and practice relaxation skills. So those are things we spoke about in the first workshop, which I refer back to you to check out. So let's take a look at stress management strategies that have to do with our exam period, right? Key thing here is to understand that you want to begin studying now, because procrastination can cost you, right? It won't get any easier. So thinking about it will just make the thoughts make you think more and more stress, and you see less results, right? So start planning now. What does that mean? That means clarify the areas you need to study, right? So be strategic. Ask the areas that you should focus on to your professors and TA. What areas are you weak in that you need to work more on? So give that more attention, right? Organize a time plan. So start when you said you start, stop when you said you'd stop, and looking at 45 minutes at a time, and then breaks, 10-minute breaks. So those are where you go for those walks, right? And schedule a half-hour break into each morning, evening, and afternoon for longer ones as well. Another idea is, before we get into organizing a study group, it's more social and productive, is you want to look at, for example, looking at overall all the content that you're going to be covering. And I remember doing this as a student as well, looking at everything overall. So mentally you have the image of what it is that you need to cover, and then looking at what needs to be covered in terms of more time on areas that you don't understand, getting support and help on that ahead of time as well, and strategically breaking things down, like for the next such amount of days I'm going to be doing this, for the next amount of this I'm going to do this, etc., etc. Finally, looking at enhancing your memory, and we're going to take a look at that in the next few slides, but testing your memory after each session that you review every hour, and then writing summary notes and just skimming everything, that can go a long way in helping as well. So let's now take a look at the next part here in terms of the brain food for peak performance. So drinking lots of water, staying hydrated, absolutely. Reducing caffeine, try herbal teas. I know a lot of people like to use caffeinated drinks to help focus, attention, but it also can cause a lot of stress, right? What happens with the the caffeine is that it can make you jittery, right? It can make you a bit more anxious. Those of you who are used to it, though, that's another thing, right? And when you stop it, then you need it even more, right? But so let's take a look at that. I'm just going to put them all up on the screen here. Oh, we'll go back, and that way I can just go through them quickly here. So, caffeine intake, right? It intensifies the physical symptoms of the stress. So, we really want to be aware of that. We want to have that balanced diet that includes the fresh foods, especially fruits and vegetables, and regularly eating at meal times, especially breakfast, which can help you maximize that brain function and manage your stress levels more effectively throughout the day. We want to take a look at reducing nicotine as well, right? Because it has similar effect to caffeine. Obviously, reducing processed sugar intake. So, excessive refined sugar can cause sudden drops in blood pressure, the hypoglycemia, right? Reduce sodium. So, excessive sodium can also increase blood pressure. We want to include a protein source in your diets. It's necessary for energy, cellular immunity, and hormonal production. Vitamin C and B complex vitamin sources. So, for example, broccoli, tomatoes, citrus fruits, and potatoes, and include a source of calcium. So, milk products, tofu, zinc, seafood, potassium from bananas, dark greens, leafy vegetables. So, these are great. And nuts, for example, nuts are great for memory. For example, walnuts, right? They look like little brains, right? So it doesn't sound appetizing that way, but they're really great for memory. So these are just starters. Of course, there's so much more details out there. You can talk to a nutritionist, a dietitian, but let's go on to the next part here in terms of looking at what can help the brain, looking at sleep, right? So catching the sleep wave, right? Read, not study until you feel sleepy, and then let sleep take over if you're struggling to sleep. Learn your own sleeping patterns. So when you are most likely to fall, when are you most likely to fall asleep? Study that. Maybe not before exam time to change those things, but to be aware of that, right? And establishing a routine of sleep times and waking times. So train your body and mind to expect sleep and wake at those times. Aim for 8 hours each night. I know that's ridiculous, sounds ridiculous during exam time, but you want to take a look at that and set the alarm. And no matter what your mind is doing, tell yourself that you'll wake up refreshed just before the alarm goes off. So, mind over body can go a long way in helping you manage that a little bit better. So, now let's look at some exam strategies that we can do right before exams, right? To help you manage things a little bit better. So, let's take a look at that here. Sorry, I just got a phone call that showed up on my computer here. All right, so let's take a look at some of these strategies that can go a long way in helping you. Um, like these strategies will help you really get going in terms of just preparing yourself right before the exam. So, number one, find out all the information that you can about the exam before the day of the exam, right? This reduces the number of things that you'll have to worry about. For example, where is the exam scheduled? How long will it take for you to get there? Do a trial run, especially if you are going to be going on campus, right? How will you get there? Are you going to drive? Are you going to walk? Public transport? If you're driving, where will you park? Parking can cause a lot of stress last minute when you can't find it, and to make sure it's available right before the exams, right? Then, if you're using public transport, get a timetable and choose a time that will allow you to catch the next train or bus and still be of time if you miss it, right? And what do you need to do when you get there? You need your student card, your pens, pencils, erase sharpener, whatever it is if you're going on campus, right? And what are the exam rules and the regulations? This can help prevent nightmares big time, right? The night before the exam, gather everything that you need so that you don't have to search for it in the morning, which can cause a lot of stress as well, right? So, uh, we took a look at this. Getting a good night's sleep is crucial, right? And the night before the exam, it's important to get that good night's sleep so that you're able to concentrate at your optimal level. Otherwise, what happens is you're just going to be just sleep deprived, right? And I remember doing this. I've actually stayed up all night going into an exam. It's brutal with your concentration. And so you don't want to be doing that, although a lot of people tend to do that, especially when you're crashing last minute. So you want to be able to get there in good time. Again, we spoke about that. So give yourself plenty of time to spare, avoid rushing and increasing your stress levels, avoid getting there too early, as then you can get caught up in conversations about the stress and it can really impact you as well that way. Then you hear about how people, you know, just what they expect of the exam and so on and so forth. So it can only stress you further. And so you want to sit quietly, taking slow, deep, relaxing breaths and repeating positive affirmations to yourself. That can go a long way. Very helpful. Next part here we want to take a look at, continued, is you want to listen carefully to the instructions if you're there in person. If you're doing this online, also watch for the instructions and read them very carefully. So plan your time effectively. Allow time in proportion to the percentage of the assessment. So, for example, 3 equal sections in 2 hours means 40 minutes per section. So aim to complete the main part of each in 30 minutes, and then 5 to 10 minutes on each, filling in anything that you've missed or not attempted. So the final 5 to 10 minutes, check for mistakes and clarify answers and add further information. So choose the order in which you'll answer the questions and number your answers carefully so you don't miss that. And don't panic if you don't know the answer. Go to another question. Skip it. Spend your time answering questions, not worrying about what you've done or not done. You'll get to that eventually. Next part here is taking a look at the essay type question, right? So if you don't have time, or even right before you write your essay, write a dotted plan, point form, and write it clearly in case you do run out of time. Then you can go back and tell the assessor all the points are here, it's just not written in essay format. So, that way you can get marks and for the points that you've shown that you were going to be writing about. And multiple choice questions, don't change your answers unless you're 100% sure. Sometimes our gut can really help us with that as well. All right, let's take a look now a little bit further in terms of leaving time for a revision at the end. So we don't want to leave early, especially because you're panicking and you're upset that you've messed up something, right? What if you've learned that way? However, if you are having an actual panic attack or a fainting spell, so your shortness of breath, you're feeling dizzy, you feel like you're going to pass out or die, God forbid, or there's flushes or chills, you feel like you're going to lose control, overwhelming powerlessness, then you want to seek medical attention for sure. But in all other areas, stay and do the best that you can, because number one, you've tackled your anxiety demon rather than let it win. Number two, who knows, you may have actually done better than you think, and you can always apply for special consideration after the exam. Like at Carleton University, you've got up to 3 days to do that, to ask for an actual deferral. So that's something to consider, and not let that get in the way, right? Of you not doing well in that moment, but that you can actually get help. So get a form from the exam proctor if you do leave for deferral purposes, so that you can get that medical note ASAP from your doctor. Okay, so this is for Carleton students. Maybe check to see what other universities or colleges do with that. But if you're a Carleton student, you can ask for that form, take it with you, get a deferral, go to a medical doctor who can fill out a form for you to get that deferral, even if you've already written the exam up to 3 days after the exam. So don't have postmortems, meaning, just wait for the grade till you get back and the feedback, and try to learn from the mistakes that you made from, right? A lot of people get really upset about the marks and think that, 5 years down the road, that's going to matter. Sometimes it could when you need a certain grade for a professional school. Absolutely. However, you don't want to be putting yourself in that negative space mentality, right? And do the thoughts on the highway exercise here. So, pretending you're going on the highway and just letting it go, and you're focusing on your goal rather than looking at what happened in the past. All right, now let's take a look at your plan for mastering your exams the best way that you can. So how do we do that? Well, looking at identifying your own exam stress print. So just like we did before, identifying your regular stress print, know what causes you to feel stressed, know the signs and symptoms of your body, and look at what are the factors that increase your stress levels. Okay, looking at that. Looking at what you can change. What can you accept? Identify revision and stress management strategies that work best for you. And of course, this goes through the practice. The more you practice these strategies, the more over time you can see how it will help you master the best that you can, right? Next, we're going to take a look at our final tips for managing the exams anxiety or stress, is try to stay on that regular schedule of reviewing, eating, sleeping, relaxing, and relaxing can include exercise, of course. Try to start this pattern several days, if not weeks. So exams potentially start next week for a lot of people. So start this plan this week. Okay. Don't try to study for 24 hours a day. That's just overwhelming on your brain. So you don't want to force yourself to study beyond your normal limits of concentration, right? You want to have short, regular study periods because these are more productive than the lengthy single ones. I know this is very unique to each individual. There were times where I was able to study for 3 hours straight with no break. And there were other times where no, I needed that 45-minute and then go. And of course, it depends on the course content, the subject, and just how you study in general, right? So this is something individual, but overall, the short spurts of studying are more manageable. And managing your sleep, eating, and exercise levels to de-stress. So very important and powerful so that you can manage things a lot better. For those of you who are watching, just keep these things in mind. If you have any questions, those Carleton students, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, whether by email or booking an appointment and talking to your professors. So those of you who have questions right now, this is a great opportunity to ask your questions if you have any. But it's really important to understand that during exam period, a lot of us tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? And I think it's normal that this time of year we do put that pressure on ourselves to try and get things done. It's really important to have an overall balance of everything, right? Reach out to your professors. Perhaps, you are going through circumstances that are out of your hands, perhaps dealing with the death of family or anything very big that can take away from your focus and concentration. That's life, and you're allowed to deal with that. You're allowed to grieve, you're allowed to deal with these challenges and reach out for accommodations, whether you're a student with the PMC, talking to your professor, your TA. It's really important to get those supports. And like we said, you can defer and write your exam another time, or even talk to your professor ahead of time, see how you can have academic accommodation to put maybe the weight of certain assignments on the final, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact the Carleton Health and Counseling Services at 613-520-6674, or you can email me. But if you do want to book an appointment with myself as a Carleton student, call and ask to speak with me. And final tips, what you get now is not going to determine the rest of your life. As long as you're doing your absolute best, get the support that you need, reach out, get the support. And for those students who are fasting right now, I know it's not the easiest of thing to be doing. I've been through it myself. I can appreciate it. Absolutely. And, you know, when you are fasting and studying, for the students who are practicing and observing the month of Ramadan right now during exam time, I find sometimes that you can get your best focus done, and concentration can be without the distraction of food. And we're talking about staying hydrated, of course, but you have to find the optimal time, whether it is after you break your fast or perhaps during the day when you are less distracted by food and drink. So you got to see what is your optimal way of studying and asking for accommodation. If you've got back-to-back exams that are around breaking your fast time, absolutely you can ask to get that deferred for another time, but you just have to reach out. So please do reach out to the registrar's office to make those accommodations if needed. So thank you very much for tuning in again, for those folks who've done that, and stay tuned for a lot of other uh, programs that we'll be having perhaps over the summer, definitely during the new academic year. There'll be other programs throughout that you can follow through social media, different topics related to wellness and well-being. And again, thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them and send them in. Thank you very much. Take care and good luck on the exams.